I have finally watched the Donald Trump movie. Yes, I have watched The Apprentice, the brand new film from director Ali Abbasi, which stars Sebastian Stan, who of course plays Donald Trump, this little known man that you may or may not have heard of. He serves in this kind of small, not so powerful role called the President of the United States. Yeah, he is the 45th and the 47th President of the United States, and somewhat I would say a controversial figure, maybe a divisive figure amongst the culture of America and the world. I think that's fair to say. And I had made a decision not to see or review this movie before the election. And I had a couple different reasons. I made a whole video talking about why. But pretty much the basis was because Donald Trump is who he is. There's no way to really do a video about this film without sort of leaking in some biases that we all have in this subject. So I did not think it would be fair for me to review the film or really even bring light to the film before an election because I did not want to try to influence anybody or get political on this channel. I wanted this channel to be absent of politics, so I didn't review it. But now that the election has come and gone, and of course Donald Trump did win the election, and he is going to be our president, whether that makes us all happy or very, very sad, it is what it is, and because of that, and because we all somewhat have to support him, it doesn't really matter what I say about this movie, because it's over. So here I am watching the movie, and I have some things to say about it, and some things to say about the nature of making political movies. Because, listen, this is not the first time there has been a movie about a presidential or a controversial figure. We have had movies made about Richard Nixon, we have had movies made about Dick Cheney, and most recently we had a Ronald Reagan movie that I thought was pretty well balanced when it came to being sort of very nice and glorifying about the figure, but also very honest about some other stuff, with like the Iran and Contra stuff. This is a movie that is, let's just be honest, a total hit piece. This film has two jobs. Its first job was to humanize Donald Trump, to take this man who feels like this mega figure, this godlike figure who is just all powerful, and every time we see him, he's in the White House, and he's just like this bigger-than-life human being, and try to ground him, try to make him a normal person and understand how he could become what he became. And then the second part of the movie is to make him look horrible. It's just what the movie was made to do, and anybody who says anything different is wrong. Now, whether making him look horrible is using factual things that he actually did or unfactual things, I don't know. I'm not the judge of that. What I am going to be the judge of is the movie itself. Is this a good movie? Whether its subject matter is true, real, fictional, whatever. Yeah, this is, shockingly, a really well-made, really visually beautiful, well-performed, and decent movie that has a good plot, a good sort of character, thematical essence to it, the way the characters sort of take this weird double twist on each other between Sebastian Stan's Donald Trump and Jeremy Strong's Roy Khan, like the separate paths those characters go down and the flip, I thought was very interesting, and a lot of the stuff in this film does work. The characterization of Donald Trump, this man who starts off as this incredibly ambitious kid just trying to build this real estate company, this guy who's got a lot of confidence to him and a lot of boldness, but has not become sort of this mega billionaire, superpowered man that he is today, they do a really good job at selling that part of him, and Sebastian Stan's performance in this movie is tremendous. It would have been very easy to do like the typical, "You see, Roy Cohn, I'm trying to build a real estate company. We're going to build the best buildings, the greatest buildings with my name because I'm the best, the biggest buildings for the best president." But instead, Sebastian Stan does something a lot better. He instead just kind of throws on a New York accent and just captures the essence of Trump. You know, the mannerisms, of course. You got the hands, you got the lips, you got the eyes. But it doesn't feel like Alec Baldwin on SNL. It feels like a real human being, and that is something that, if you were to ask me a year ago, I would have told you is impossible. The real standout here, though, is Jeremy Strong as Roy Khan. My God, Jeremy Strong, give this man an Oscar. He is unbelievable in everything he's in, and in this role playing this just sadistic piece of shit lawyer who is pretty much infamous in this life, is so, so good. Maria Bakalova, who's incredible in everything she's in, she plays Ivana Trump here, and I have a lot of issues with the characterization of Ivana and some of the stuff that happens with her, just because Ivana in real life is dead, and some of the stuff that they have happen in this movie, I'm not sure they would have done if she was still alive and could say, hey, that didn't happen. So there's some, like, dirty stuff there, but as a character and her path in this movie, I thought she was done really, really well, and she's great, excellent. She's excellent at everything she's in. I also really love the visual style of this film. It's clearly trying to sort of imitate Succession. This film definitely is a birth child of Succession, that the way things are filmed, the way music plays out, the way characters talk. It is trying to be Succession, but Donald Trump. Let's just be honest here. But it works really well. The scenes, the way the characters bounce off each other, the handheld camera movements throughout a lot of it, it works great. This movie visually is ugly, but ugly in a purposeful way that actually makes it visually impressive to watch, in my opinion. Now, of course, the story goes through the pattern of being like this villain story. This guy who becomes this supervillain, and you might disagree with that. You might be somebody who's like, I love Donald Trump, I voted for him, he's the greatest president ever. And for somebody that has that mindset, you're not gonna like the characterization of Donald Trump in this movie. You're gonna say, wow, there's a lot of questionable bullshit here that Maybe he did, maybe he didn't do, you can't prove it, and this feels like a hit piece. And honestly, you might be justified to feel that way, but if you're somebody who absolutely hates this man, who thinks he's evil, you're gonna watch this and think, of course he did all these things, of course this is the perfect villain origin story, he's a terrible person, and you might be justified in thinking those things. I'm not here to tell you how to think about this guy. Okay, if you want that, go, there's a billion other things on YouTube that I'm sure will pop up in your recommended. Go watch those. I'm not here to say that. I'm just here to tell you that this movie is going to evoke one of those emotions depending on who you voted for. But if you're somebody who's like a little bit down the middle or somebody that just doesn't really give a shit or that much of a shit like me, like I'm obviously outside of this. I'm invested in all that stuff. We all are. We can't lie and say, I have no opinion on any of that. But to me, it doesn't really make a difference. Like I am somewhat down the middle. It doesn't really matter. I could objectively talk about this movie, whether it supports my opinions and does not. And I will say, although there are issues with the characterization, there are issues with some of the factual stuff that they present, and some really questionable stuff, mainly with Ivana, and some stuff that happens with her that I think was a little dirty, a little election interference-y, or at least an attempt to be election interference-y. This movie bombed, so clearly it didn't affect much. Overall, I think this movie's fair enough that it doesn't feel like a comically inaccurate depiction of this character one way or another. It feels like this could happen, this could be who he actually is, but even if it's not, it's still an entertaining ride of a movie that it makes sense. There is a fantastic scene near the end of the movie with him and Roger Stone, which I would bet money that scene happened in real life, because it's just amazing. I also like where this movie left off. There's also a lot of, like, there are some really cheesy references to the modern day, to things that are going on now. Like, the movie opens with Richard Nixon resigning the presidency. Like, it gets to a point where it's cheesy. Honestly, the presidency and the modern day with stuff about Trump really didn't have to be mentioned at all. You could take all of those references out, and the movie still works exactly the same, and I actually think works better. It's just there were so many moments where they would throw a line in there where they were supposed to be like, that's, remember when he was president, he said something like that? And it's like, we don't need that. We do remember it. Obviously, we remember it. You don't need it. But overall, this is a really solid movie, though, that I'm actually surprised that I like. I am a fan of political movies because they are risky in nature. It's risky to make a movie about Donald Trump, and a part of me wants to applaud the people for taking this risk and making this movie. A part of me wants to applaud them for releasing this movie right before an election. Another part of me wants to rip their faces off because, oh my god, you released this movie a week before the election. What are you doing? What was the studio trying to do here? Obviously, the studio was trying to take advantage of the election and make some money, but if I was the filmmaker, why would you want to do this other than to try to influence opinions? Which is why I did not review the movie before the election, because I did not want to use my review to influence people, because this is a movie that is, in essence, fictional, just because all movies are fiction. It's a movie! It should not be used to influence literally anything, but it was, in my opinion. That's what at least some people were trying to do with it, which I really didn't like. I thought it was dirty, and I don't like when they do that with politics movies. Don't play politics with your politic movies. Politic movies are supposed to ask a question. They're supposed to dive into these people and give us an inside view of what's happening. We're supposed to ask questions, not influence, not politic. It's not the point of them. Except for JFK. That movie literally opened an entire new congressional investigation. It was hilarious. What a brilliant movie by Oliver Stone. Great stuff. Overall, I'll give The Apprentice a 3.5 out of 5. I had a really good time with this one, and I recommend it checking out. If you're somebody who's hypersensitive about politics one way or another, this movie will probably get a hypersensitive response out of you. And you might like that, you might hate that, but just beware before you check it out. If the poster of him just being Donald Trump wasn't enough to tell you that, yeah, that's what this film is. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.